Welcome to a series on one another's.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have a good time in the next few weeks where we unpack what it means to look after one another,
Yeah.
to minister to one another.
And even just what it even means to be one another as a church rather than one to many.
Yeah, one to many, which many people have that concept or paradigm of church.
Yeah, the whole bunch of people gather together and all the many people listen to one person.
Yeah.
And what's one person's responsibility to make it all happen for everybody. That one to many idea of church doesn't work. The life doesn't happen there, does it?
No, it doesn't bring what God intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're going to look, especially in this session, on what is the church and how the one another's, because there's 59 one another's in the Bible. And Jesus calls us to look after one another, and so we're going to unpack that over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I reckon it's going to be good in small groups as well, discussing really quite personally about how you view church. What does it mean and how does it actually work? Because a lot of us come into different sort of social contexts with different sorts of experiences.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the key things, so I reckon, is really important is we always remember that the Bible describes church as family.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the challenges with family is that we've all come from different sorts of families.
Yeah.
And so we bring our own contexts and ways of doing it,
Yeah.
which is part of the fun of church, isn't it?
Yeah.
But actually talking together in small groups about how we interact with each other, how we interact as a church, I reckon is going to make us much more effective in our, you know, as we are being who the church is. You know,
in our small groups.
Yeah, totally.
For starters, and, you know, you're meeting together. You're giving up your time, and we want to make sure it's as beneficial as possible. And for that to happen, we've got to get a biblical understanding of what church is rather than just a cultural one.
Yeah. It's good.
And I wonder how much of our view is a cultural viewpoint rather than actually a biblical one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because many people think many things about the church. And where the church goes wrong is simply because people have adopted practices that are outside of God's paradigm or outside of how he views things.
Yeah. And I think, things always going to develop, in a social group. And the idea of this series is we think about these one another's as real key ways of focusing how we want church to grow, how we want our involvement, what we want our involvement in church to look like.
Yeah.
You know, that we base it around the one another's of Scripture rather than basing it around our own needs or, you know, what's cool at the moment. There's a whole lot of things we can shape church around. But if we can shape it around the pattern in Scripture, then we're going to experience the life of God in it, which I reckon that's why we're there, you know.
And given that there's 59 one another's in the Bible,
Which we'll be going through individually in great detail.
it means that there's got to be a level of significance to that.
Yeah.
And, you know, when it comes to church, many people think church is an organisation, you know, they think of a Sunday service, but church is so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
And, you know, for us to understand that we are the church. In fact, when we gave our heart to Jesus, the Bible talks about how we're baptized into one body. And we've become part of this family. We have a whole lot of brothers and sisters we never knew we had.
Yeah.
And many people can relate to a church like they relate to their workplace, like they relate to, you know, an organisation, a club, but it's different than that.
Yeah, because it is a spiritual family that we actually get connected into. We have a relationship together because of our relationship through Christ, which it's not always. I don't know. It's not always brilliant, but it's always powerful. Like it's this changing, this, you know. Whereas if it's a sports club, you can point the finger at the sports club and say, "I don't like this," or "I don't like that." But when you are it, you know, we have to be careful about what we say about church because we are it.
Yeah.
You know, we have to think, well, if the church is a reflection of who we are. You know, and so we can criticize maybe how church goes, or we could, you know, you hear people do that, but the more powerful thing would be to contemplate how are we living?
Yeah.
You know, how are we expressing the life of God that's in us? Because that's actually what church is going to become. It's going to become how we live.
Yeah.
It's not going to become what where we point our fingers, you know.
And I like the expression, we are who we are.
Yeah, it's a good
because many people want the church to be something different to who they are individually.
Yeah.
So, you know, they want the church to be this corporately, but they're not that individually.
Yeah.
But we are who we are. So who I am individually is ultimately going to affect who we are corporately.
Yeah.
And the Bible talks about that we're living stones being built into a spiritual house. So we're all part of the material that God's using to build his church.
Yeah.
And so church is more than something I attend. It's something that we are.
Yeah.
And, you know, many people go, well, what's the church doing about homelessness? What's the church doing about this? What's the church? Well, the question we're going to ask in a lot of places is what are we doing about it?
Yeah.
Because the chances are, if we're not doing anything about it, the church is not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's so easy, you know, I think in many places to distance yourself from need or distance yourself from, you know, the issues out there. But as a church, we're called to be the answers to those.
Yeah, exactly. And not just called to be, we have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
You know, we're an organisation that we can be, a church is a family that we're part of where we get to be the people who decide how it's expressed.
Yeah.
You know, we get to be the thing God's called us to be. And as we do that individually, we express something great. You know?
So when it comes to one another's, ministering to one another is actually, it's ministry.
Yeah.
Ministry is serving. But when people think of ministry, they think of a preacher, they think of a musician.
Music leader, yeah.
Yeah, they think of many different things. And they've narrowed the concept of ministry down, whereas, you know, Paul in Ephesians has a much broader concept of who's a minister.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the paradigm of Scripture, of course, is that every member of the body is to minister, you know, and it's the role of the body to minister to itself, you know, and that's the whole idea of one another. And I like it in Ephesians, it says that the whole body is built up by what each joint supplies. Yeah. So it's not even just the individual parts. So it's not just what you bring to the table as an individual, but it's the interaction of the parts of the body.
Yeah.
You know, the Old Testament says that, you know, an iron sharpens an iron. It's that interaction of parts that produces the results. It produces the life in the body. You know, the joints of your body is what provides movement, not the parts.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the same in church. You know, the power of your small group is that it's lots of people actually connecting. Yeah. You know, and probably perhaps in a little bit more depth than Sunday. Yeah. It's a slightly different connection, serves a different purpose, but there's that connection that actually you can do something, you can actually leverage something and make something great happen.
Yeah, it's important the church comes together in a central place, rallies together, and that's Sunday. But many people misread the concept even of Sunday. Yeah. Because ultimately Sunday, as John Wimber would say, he'd say the meeting place is simply the training place for the marketplace.
Exactly, yeah.
And where ministry takes place is actually in our workplaces.
Yeah, yeah.
In our daily activities,
Yeah, and the body's built up so that we can minister. So the church's job is to minister to the world. Yeah. You know? And so what happens on Sunday is mostly the church growing and becoming strong, being equipped, you know, being trained so that we then individually and as groups can influence and impact in the community around us, you know? Yeah.
Well, church is a spiritual home.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way. And like at your home, you have responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as believers, individual believers, we all have responsibility, you know, for home. Yeah. You know, when I get home, I have to do the dishes. Yeah. You know, I have given responsibilities. And it doesn't matter what I've done during the day, I've still got those responsibilities when I come home. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it doesn't matter how old you are either. You know, like in most families, you know, the little kids will get chores that suit where they're at. Yeah. And the older you get, as our kids have found out, the older you get, the more of the jobs you get to take over from mum and dad. You know, and those responsibilities shift as we grow. Yeah. But everyone's got a role to play in a home, and that's the same at church. Church is our spiritual homes. Everyone's got a role to play, a responsibility to play. Yeah. And then you've got that's church, and then you've got your whole life where you do your ministry into what John Wimber talks about, the marketplace. You know, so in your business or in your in your extended family or your neighborhood, the local school. Those are all the places where the kingdom is then expressed out into the world. Yeah, you know, and that's a big thing because many people go, well, I'm busy in my work, I don't have time for church.
Well, everyone would say that. Yeah. Like everyone's full on busy. Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how busy you are in your workplace, everybody still has responsibility at home.
I've found that it doesn't matter how busy I am at work, the stuff still has to happen at home for home to function. Yeah.
And home is a really important place. And, you know, that whole concept of making church home is a big thing because many people can attend, they can come and benefit from the house, but still not contribute to the house.
Yeah.
And I think, for new people coming in, being blessed by the house is great.
So good, yeah.
It's a good starting point, but there's got to be a point where you shift from being a consumer to a contributor.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing is it's only when you shift to being a contributor
Yeah.
that you get the full benefit.
Of the house.
Yeah, because one of the best things church does for you is it creates a place where you can serve. So you get to belong there,
Yeah.
but you also get to invest in that space. You get to make it great by being there.
And you get to grow.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
there's an acronym
There's a
we
great
use quite a bit here at Equippers, which
Yeah.
is belong. We want to create a place of belonging, a place where people can invest, and a place where people can grow.
Yeah.
Well, we pray that this is going to enlarge your heart. And as we continue on looking at the one another's, that you're going to grow into the fullness of what God has for your life. See you next time.